Lee Canyon Road, heading toward the Charleston Wilderness, just outside of Las Vegas. And our goal today is Macks Peak. Very seldom climbed peak. Anyway, you can see 3 mountain peaks in the center here. Here you've got Mummy Mountain. And we've got a lot on Mummy Mountain in LasVegasAreaTrails.com. And over to the right, McFarland Peak. And we've been out there, we have not yet summited McFarland Peak. And in the center of the 3 is Macks Peak, which is around 10,000 feet. We'll be summiting the left side, which is around 9,000, and heading up to the summit. In fact, it's around 9,900. So there you have it, a bird's eye view where we're headed today. And we're going to head up Lee Canyon Road to just past the Sawmill Trails turnoff. There is Macks Canyon Road. I believe if you get to the junction of Deer Creek Road off of Lee Canyon Road, Deer Creek Road actually leads over to Kyle Canyon Road. It takes a left up ahead. And anyway, if you get to Deer Creek Road, you've gone too far. There is a wide spot parking area. And there's a sign that says Macks Canyon Road, dirt road, about 4 miles to the end of that road. And then we head southwest and start looking for Macks Peak. So that's what we're doing today. Never been there before, never been anywhere before that I go with Las Vegas Area Trails. We just do a little research and then take off. So here we go. Okay, still on Lee Canyon Road. We are now, there's Mummy's Head, by the way. Great shot in the morning. Okay, so we are now at the Macks Canyon Road, and it's about 4 miles. There's a sign that says Macks Canyon Group Camp 4 miles from here. And so we're going to head up Macks Canyon Road, and the idea is that we go 4 miles and then we head southwest through the wilderness towards Macks Peak. So we'll see if that all bears out. And here's the wide spot in the road here, right at the Lee Canyon Road and Macks Canyon Road. And there you see the beast, and we are ready to go. So here we go. We're going to go on foot for 4 miles, and then on this road, and then another 4 miles to Macks Peak, and then downhill all the way back. Okay, here we go. Well, as we start out on Macks Canyon Road, looks like there are a few little camping spots right here at the very beginning of the road. So that's kind of interesting if you just want to camp up in the wilderness. Now, as far as temperature today, in the Las Vegas Valley, the upper Las Vegas Valley, around 2,000 feet, the predicted temperature is 109 degrees. Right now it's around 87, 90 degrees. At that point, we are at about 7,000 feet, maybe a little above 7,000, and we are in about 70 degrees. So we are 20 degrees cooler, which means that it could be as much as 90 degrees up here in the middle of the day, but it's not going to be 109 degrees. So we'll see how that all goes. Here we go. Very beautiful up here. Macks Canyon Road. a lot of pullouts for camping. And I guess people camp up here and then head on over to a lot of great hiking areas just beyond up Macks Canyon Road. You have access to the Bonanza Trail and the Bristlecone Pine Trail. Bonanza Trail actually will take you all the way from Lee Canyon to Bonanza Peak, and that ridge line that you saw a moment ago with Mummy's Head and Macks Peak and McFarland Peak. The other side of that ridge line is actually the Bonanza Trail. Okay, let's take a look. There are other directions here. Hopefully we're not supposed to be going up this little road. The road here is actually, the main Macks Canyon Road is a very good road, and you could two-wheel drive it pretty easily. Okay, here's where the road turns a little evil for vehicles, and you can see somebody left their trailer here and continued on up. But I'd say, yeah, we're only about a quarter mile or more in on Macks Canyon Road, and to get up this little stretch, pretty rocky, bumpy, I'm thinking I would want a four-wheel drive vehicle at this point. So yeah, you're not going to get too far up Macks Canyon Road without on a two-wheel drive vehicle. You're going to need four-wheel drive. Reference points coming into view. There's Mummy's Head, and over here is Angel Peak. And we're heading east on Macks Canyon Road, and when we round the corner, I think we're going to get a good shot of the Sheep Range. We'll see. It's a good shot of Macks Peak. And as we look at it, we will be heading up the left side. This is, you see a line of trees right in the center. We will be navigating a ledge that follows that line of trees. That should be interesting. A little frightening drop at that point. So who knows how far we're going to get. If it gets too scary, I'll turn around, but at least we'll get an idea how to get to Macks Peak, and maybe we'll get an experience of the summit. The summit is on the right, that high point there. And then let's look down the ridge a little further. See if we can get a good view. Yeah. And you can see over toward the McFarland Peak area. And I think that might be McFarland Peak itself. Not absolutely certain, but yeah, if you're on the Bonanza Trail, you're on the far side of that ridge there. And then you can continue on to Bonanza Peak, and we have made that adventure, and it's on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. But yeah, getting an idea where we are. Macks Canyon Road. And heading the 4 miles to the point where we deviate and head up toward Macks Peak. We want to take this road as far as we can through wilderness area to save time. Okay, here we go. On Macks Canyon Road, but being that I'm on foot, it's easier to notice things that you'd miss if you were in a vehicle. And yeah, here's a little marker that, you know, no vehicles beyond this point, but it looks like there's a little trail heading up this way. Maybe it's going toward the Sisters, and this would be a way to get to the Sisters, which are in the same area as Macks Peak. So yeah, we'll keep heading up Macks Canyon Road. Here we go. Macks Canyon Road, and another little offshoot trail or pathway or wash. We don't know, but yeah, we'll try these at some point. And this could also lead up to the area where the Sisters are located. Of course, nothing's marked in this area or in many areas that I go, so you almost have to just guess unless you've got a GPS. Okay, onward. I passed over 10 pretty nice camping pullouts. You got to have all your own services, water, food, everything that you need to bring with you. There are no services here, but the pullouts are amazing. Okay, the road has taken quite a dive, but overall, we're still heading toward Macks Peak. And there it is. And I believe we're looking at Bonanza Peak down this way. And McFarland Peak over here. So just to give you an idea where we are. Give you a quick 360. Beautiful pine forest, pine and juniper. And you can see east toward the rising sun, or the risen sun at this point. And heading now west toward Macks Peak. On Macks Canyon Road, just wanted to point out there are a number of little split off roads that split off to the left, which is toward Macks Peak, which you can see in the distance there. But we don't know if these roads are a shortcut or if they lead to deep canyons that must be traversed. So I'm going to continue on Macks Canyon Road for now. Here's one of those, looks like a camping pullout. Or maybe another split off road. We don't know. It's a lot to explore up here. Eventually we'll explore everything. But yeah, continuing along Macks Canyon Road, winding around. A lot of downhill. Some pretty steep downhill, which as I traverse this, I'm thinking, wow, when I'm tired on the way back, hitting these uphills is going to be not so fun. But let's continue on. Just see where this leads. Well, this road has turned away from Macks Peak a number of times and toward Macks Peak. And you know, as we wind our way through Macks Canyon, you're looking straight at Macks Peak now. And this is one of those moments we're heading toward Macks Peak, looking around. There you're looking at the sheep range in the distance, very faint. See some spring flowers. It's actually the second Saturday in June. So if you want to experience spring for about 6 months in a row, just keep ascending to higher altitudes where spring is just beginning at various points. Okay, so yeah, you can see the left side. Let's take a closer look. Wow. I don't know, that band of trees, yeah, you can see the cliff drop off. That should be interesting. I'll see if I can at least get us up to that band of trees, but you know, I don't know if I feel like tackling a scary climb today. Anyway, yeah, continuing to head up toward Macks Peak, and let's just see what happens. Okay, I estimate we're about 2 to 3 miles up Macks Canyon Road. And you can see the road is narrowing, getting a lot more rugged, and there's a gate here. So I imagine this could be a part that's blocked off during the winter. Who knows? But we're continuing on and definitely heading toward Macks Peak at this point. So let's just see where things lead. I think we've got, by the way, it'll be about 4 miles by the time we get to the point where we leave this road, where it's supposed to end. On maps, I see it continuing on a lot longer, but let's just see what things look like up here. To give you a perspective, the entire trip here today is going to be 16 miles round trip from Lee Canyon Road to the summit of Macks Peak, if we make the summit. And for perspective, the Mount Charleston Loop, if you do the entire Mount Charleston Loop, you do 18 miles. So this is pretty substantial. And we've already ascended and lost about 800 feet. So by the time we're done, we should have ascended close to 4,000 feet. The ups and downs of the Mount Charleston Loop Trail amount to about 6,000 plus feet. So this also has an altitude gain and loss that's fairly comparable to the Mount Charleston Loop. So yeah, you do Macks Peak on the route by the way I'm going, you're pretty much equaling, maybe exceeding what you would experience doing the entire Mount Charleston Loop. Okay, at Macks Canyon Group Camp, and it's supposed to be 4 miles in, so made better time than I thought I was going to make. So here's where we're going to begin looking for a way to the southwest that's going to lead to Macks Peak, and we are currently heading south. So southwest is going to be up in that direction. So I think we get around this ridge and then head upward. We'll see. We'll make it up as we go. Okay, now we are going through Macks Canyon Upper Group Camp, and you can see Macks Peak up ahead. So the big question is, where do we turn off this road and head toward Macks Peak? We shall see. Okay, we're on Macks Canyon Road above the group camp, above the upper group camp. And I know this ridge lies between where we are and Macks Peak, and at least the east side of Macks Peak, which is what we want. And the road's heading in that direction, so I want to get as close as I can on this road before we leave and see if there's a route up to the east side of Macks Peak. Continuing on. And by the way, still some amazing places to pull your car, trailer, whatever you've got, off the road and camp and look at the surroundings you would be in. This is just amazing. Macks Canyon Road. I bet there are a lot of people that don't even know this area exists. It helps that you can keep the east end of Macks Peak visible. There it is. And this ridge is continuing, so at some point I need to find a low point in the ridge, and I think that might be right in this area. That looks like people have traveled that before. And then head on up to the east end of Macks Peak, the lower end. Okay, I think we're about at the end of the line for Macks Canyon Road. And this is the upper group camp. And what we need to do is find the route up over the ridge here and then over to the east end of Macks Peak. At least you can see it. So we may have to make it up a little bit on the way, but we know where we're headed. So let's see if we can find a little trail up here. Okay, we're really closing in on the bitter end of Macks Canyon Road. I'm gonna stay to my right because I know we've got to get up over this ridge. And so it's just a matter of finding the best route. Or at this point, finding any route. I'm going to go a little further than this, but what I would say is this looks like a nice place to summit this ridge, but there might be another place just a little bit beyond the end of the ridge. So let's go a little bit more toward the end of the ridge and see if there's another area that leads up. Looks like, yeah, these areas right here actually lead up over this ridge, and that's what we want to do, is ascend over the ridge. And by the way, we are at the upper end of Macks upper group camp. Okay, Macks Canyon Road was blocked off by a barrier of boulders. I'm continuing beyond, hoping that there's a way over this ridge, otherwise we'll backtrack. And I know there was a way over the ridge a little further down. And yeah, here we are on the continuation of Macks Canyon Road. I may be jumping the gun on this. This is the continuation of Macks Canyon Road, but I see a little pile of rocks here, and up in the distance I can faintly see through the trees the eastern summit of Macks Peak. So I don't know, I'm tempted to just go right over the ridge at this low point, see where it leads. Well, I saw a cairn down on that continuation of Macks Canyon Road, and you know, it looks like the thing is to get over this ridge and then you'll have a clearer view of where you're headed. So I'm headed up to the top of this ridge here. I could have actually topped this ridge back at that group camp area. But here we are. So let's top the ridge now, because I just want to see where we are. So here we go. Okay, here we are on top of that ridge. And yeah, I'm thinking that perhaps the thing to do would have been to top the ridge at Macks Canyon Group Camp instead of heading all the way up this way, which I think is a roundabout way. I could be wrong. We'll see when we get our first view of Macks Peak, but it looks like we've got another intervening canyon now, which I was not expecting. So yeah, we'll have this figured out by the return trip. For now, we just explore, looking at landmarks so that as we return, we can find our way back. There's a nice little rock formation down there that is above Macks Canyon Road. Here are a couple peaks. And another ridge system. And then looking out in this direction, you're looking at the edge of the Sheep Range, very faint in the distance there. So yeah, we know basically where we are here. It's just a matter of, and that's the north edge of the Sheep Range, by the way. It's just a matter of now navigating around these ridges until we get a view of Macks Peak again. I think we may have overshot it, but maybe not. Onward. Very faint trail here. I want to rise up a little bit more, continue along the top of this ridge system, and hopefully we will round the corner of that high point there to the left of that high point and see Macks Peak. We don't know, but we're going to see something. Continuing a few steps further along this trail, what are the chances? But I think we're looking at the eastern summit of Macks Peak. Interesting. So it looks like we're headed straight for that point. And so this ridge is a good ridge to be on. And looks like it was a good choice to depart from the continuation of Macks Canyon Road, where I did, and head toward Macks Peak. We certainly didn't want to head further on Macks Canyon Road, I don't think. Okay, but I know this looks like it's doing it for us. And then just a 360. And there we're looking at the eastern side of Macks Canyon. And we are on the western side of Macks Canyon. So we just need to head back to that point eventually. And maybe this ridge is our ticket. Looks pretty straightforward. Let's continue on and see where this leads us. I'm feeling like I'm in one of the final scenes from The Sound of Music, the movie Sound of Music. And here we are on this ridge, and it's definitely spring up here. Beautiful wildflowers all around us, and lots of places to step in between without hitting the wildflowers, which is our goal always. And then through the trees up ahead, there's Macks Peak, the eastern end, which is our goal. So provided this ridge is going to lead us there and not present a drop-off in between, we're in a good route. And the faint trail that we were on this ridge, trails appear and disappear when you're up in the wilderness like this. You just have to go by the big picture That trail may lead us back a more direct way to the Macks Canyon group camp. We don't know. But let's continue on and let's get a look at Macks Peak here. Yeah, I believe we're looking at the eastern summit of Macks Peak, the lower summit. We don't know. We'll only know once we get up there. But kind of looks like it looked in pictures I've seen. And here's looking around us. What an incredibly beautiful place we have here. Totally no evidence right now where I am that anyone has traversed this area. So yeah, we'll continue along. There is this lower summit here, which if we reach a drop off between where we are and Macks Peak, maybe we'll just hit that lower summit and look around. We don't know. Let's keep heading toward Macks Peak. Continuing along to what we believe should be Macks Peak. And as I'm looking off in this direction, I'm wondering if we're looking at the middle and the south sisters. We don't know. And that could make this over here the north sister, but this is just a guess. And then looking back at the base of this high point up ahead is Macks Canyon for our return trip. And yeah, we should be looking up toward the upper end of Lee Canyon, but I'm not seeing Lee Peak yet. So let's get over this ridge up ahead and get a better view of our surroundings and potentially a good view of Macks Peak. Okay, just possibly we're looking at the north sister, the middle sister, and the south sister. I could be wrong, but that's a wild guess. And then on up ahead in this direction through the trees, Macks Peak, and hopefully there's not a huge drop off between this ridge and Macks Peak. Hopefully I'm on a Macks Peak ridge. It looks like there's a very, very faint trail here, so I would say I'm not the first person to approach Macks Peak from this route that I took today. And then just looking around, landmarks here. These high points are on the far side of Macks Canyon, and if you trace your way downward, you would be at Macks Canyon Road. So yeah, it helps to know where we are for the return trip. Okay, onward. Let's continue on up this ridge and see if it leads to an approach to Macks Peak. Okay, overall altitude gain today so far about 1,500 feet. We are, looks like we're approaching Macks Peak up ahead. And the sisters over here, of course, we'll find out later when we look at maps if I'm right. But yeah, it looks like there's even some cairns here on this very, very faint trail. So that's always a good sign. Okay, let's continue toward what we believe is Macks Peak. Good news, I'm on a trail here leading somewhere, and at least toward what I believe is Macks Peak. So let's just see where we are as we top this next ridge. Yeah, let's get a 360. Here's what I believe are the sisters. And they're looking across Macks Canyon. So there you get an idea. And here's a high point up here, bristlecone pine, which appear around 9,000 feet. So that means we must be around the 9,000 foot point or closing in on it. Of course, as you can see, I don't operate by instruments, just more by sight and just learning the overall lay of the land. Kind of a fun way to operate. It's like a mystery every time. Look at this tree. Wow. Okay, continuing on up. This trail, of course, I guarantee will disappear in a bit, just when I need it. But I know we go for this next ridge up ahead. Yeah, once I left Macks Canyon over there and headed up this ridge and topped the ridge, I found this faint trail, and there are a few cairns at different points where the trail becomes a little less obvious. But yeah, it's continuing on up in this direction, and I'm guessing it should be this is Macks Peak up ahead, and the trail should be heading toward Macks Peak. And you see that band of trees that goes diagonally from the upper area down to the right. That, I believe, is the summit route, if that is Macks Peak. So, wow, that looks like quite an ambitious route to get up to that summit, but we'll see. We'll just get up there and look around. More reference points appearing as we rise up. As I mentioned, I believe those are the sisters. North, middle, and south. And a south sister, that very sharp point there would be right above the bristlecone pine trail. Okay, and then looking around, we see for the first time what I believe is Charleston Peak. So there we're getting our larger perspective of this area. And then, as you can see, we were up on a ridge in the middle of nowhere, heading for what we are hoping is Macks Peak behind those trees. I take a little rest here. Refuel. I've made it to this point all the way from Macks Canyon Road. So I've already got at least 6 miles and, let's see, about 1,500 feet elevation gain, but we lost 500 and gained 500 again. So I probably gained about 2,000 feet elevation. So 6 miles, 2,000 feet. Time for a rest. But what a beautiful place to rest. And did I say it was going to be 109 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley today. If you're down there, you are in a very small, contained, air-conditioned area, looking at walls all around you. And hopefully the air conditioning brings you down to the temperature I'm at right now, which is between 70 and 80 degrees. And no walls around me. You can see forever up here. So this is one of the reasons I come to places like this in the middle of the summer, to escape cabin fever. Anyway, okay. Continuing to rest here. Okay, we find ourselves up on this high ridge and looking at the opposite side of Macks Canyon, and then coming into view here, Mummy's Head. And Lee Peak to the left, Charleston Peak to the right. So you can see part of the Mount Charleston Trail loop. Continuing around. A lot of wind. I hope this is coming through sound-wise. Looks like the sisters. And then there's Macks Peak. Supposed to be class 3 up that band of trees that goes from the upper left to the lower right. Sure doesn't look like that from here, but we'll at least get to the base of that to scope it out. And then continuing around, you see the ridge that I'm on. Looks like I'll need to do a little bit of descent and ascent again. Not a whole lot. I think I'll be able to just head down this ridge here, down to the left, and then up the next ridge, and then I'm on the final approach for Macks Peak. Not bad. And continuing around. Mummy's Head again, and the far side of Macks Canyon, Lee Peak and Charleston Peak. So this is where we are. And it seems like there are a few different ways that you could get up to Macks Peak. There's a ridge across from me, and it looks like that ridge would take you up also. I like the ridge I'm on. Partly because I chose it, and partly because it was more approachable. I began ascending sooner. And I guess there are other ridges below. And so when we get higher, we'll look at other potential approaches to Macks Peak summit. But from here, there are a couple ridge approaches. Whichever way you go, though, you're going to end up on very steep avalanche slopes. That's the only way to navigate around these spring mountains if you're heading toward any summit. You're going to be on loose rock and going straight up. And it's just pick your poison. Pick which ridge you want to use to ascend. And if you're generally going in the right direction, all ridges are going to lead to where you want to go. So we'll see when we get to the top of this. Maybe I chose the wrong ridge. Maybe this is the exact ridge I should be on. We'll see. And then something I experience again and again in the wilderness is you head toward the landmark and you'll find you weren't the first and you're on a small trail. These trails will appear, disappear. You got to piece them together. But we're on a little trail heading toward Macks Peak, straight ahead. And guess what? Another landmark. There is Angel Peak. So a lot of familiar landmarks all around us. And just the feeling of being on an untouched ridge in the middle of a wilderness where, you know, everything is so natural and untouched, bright and beautiful. It's just amazing up here. And we're probably at, let's see, what's our altitude here? Around, we're closing in on 9,000. And you can see the bristlecone pines, which grow at that altitude and above. And that band of trees up on Macks Peak is probably bristlecone pines. Here's an even better look at Macks Peak. And you can see that summit approach, the tree line up there, from upper left to lower right, right in the center of the screen. And then, better yet, you can see the entire summit from the east summit to the west summit, or maybe the south summit to the north summit. And there's the true summit of Macks Peak. But wow. Yeah, it looks like there could be an approach right up this area. But we don't know. The approach that I hear most about is right up that tree line. And it's said that that's class 3. It sure doesn't look like it from here. But you know, it looks very exposed and class 4 or 5 on a cliff. But let's continue on toward that point and just see what things look like up there. Then a quick 360. Wow. Look at the landscape here. Love what the bristlecone pines do. As you see, the combination of living and dead. Beautiful both in life and in death. But they seem to survive. If one direction doesn't work out, they just start growing in another direction. And of course, some do not make it. But wow, bristlecone pines are just amazing. The oldest one being around 4,000 years old or older. Okay, let's continue on up. And by the way, from this perspective, as far as approach ridges to this edge of Macks Peak, there is this ridge that I'm on that leads down to Macks Canyon, and I see another ridge over here that could also do the job. So if you're headed for this point you basically have two ridges. And from the upper group camp on Macks Canyon Road, just continue on the extension of that road for a bit, maybe a quarter mile or so, and then look to top the ridge on your right. And you can top the first ridge, or you can wait till later and top a later ridge. But yeah, the more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this first ridge is really the one we wanted to be on. Maybe on the way back I'll find a more direct route and we'll document that, but this is the ridge that you would want to be on if you're going to be summiting this summit. Yes, if there is an official summit trail up to Macks Peak, we're definitely on it at this point. And it's just that ridge to the right of Macks Canyon Road as you were passing the group camp. And you find a way to top that, and then eventually you end up on this and heading up to Macks Peak. And just a quick look around. Sisters. See more of Charleston coming into view. Charleston on the right. Lee on the left. And then there's the ridge along the upper, I guess what I've called the north ridge of Kyle Canyon. And we have traversed, you can look on Las Vegas area trails and see where we traversed this ridge from Lee Peak over to Mummy Mountain, staying above the main loop trail. So we didn't have to ascend and descend between Lee Peak and Mummy Mountain. It's a beautiful wilderness area. And this is the true summit of Mummy Mountain that we're looking at. And then to the left, we're looking at Mummy's Head. And then Angel Peak, Air Force radar installation at the top of Angel Peak. People think, and I thought for some time, that's an observatory. No, it's an Air Force radar station. So definitely over time, as you follow Las Vegas area trails, you can see where we learn more about the wilderness area and landmarks. Speaking of which, there's a great shot of the Sheep Range. And then looking up north, up the Highway 95 corridor. So, and then I think Cold Creek is a town below. You can hardly see it. If you look at that tree right in the center, and just to the left is a little town. I believe that's Cold Creek. Anyway, yeah, it gives you an idea, and you can actually see, if you look very carefully, you can see the Highway 95 corridor stretching out there right in the center. We take that on the way to Death Valley. See a whole section on Death Valley in Las Vegas area trails. Did a ton of adventures in Death Valley over this last winter. From Telescope Peak to Wild Rose Peak to Keen Wonder Mine, and areas all over the place in Death Valley. It was like the best winter ever. Okay, so there we are. I still don't know how in the world one can class 3 it up that band of trees. That just does not look possible from here. But let's go closer and scope it out. And guess what? Right through the trees. Look very closely. You see that pointy peak there? That's Gas Peak. And we've got a number of adventures up Gas Peak. And by the way, the sheep range and Gas Peak are in the Desert National Wildlife Refuge, made for the bighorn sheep, and it's the largest wildlife refuge in the lower 48 states. There's the sheep range. A lot of adventures in the Gas Peak area. Some adventures, initial adventures in the sheep range. We'll do a lot more of that in time to come. Okay. Up toward Macks Peak. Okay, continuing up this nicely defined trail toward Macks Peak. And we're at least going to get to the base of Macks Peak today. I may not go to the summit. My highest altitude so far this season is where I'm standing right now, which is above 9,000. The highest altitude that I attained before this was 7,000. So this is a 2,000 foot jump. And so I may come back to this point after acclimatizing myself to this altitude. What I find is all I need to do is be at an altitude one day a week for 1 or 2 weeks to acclimatize myself to that altitude. And then the next week I can push it up another 1,000, which is all I'm going to need to get up to the summit of Macks Peak. So we'll see. We'll look at how things look and how I feel when I get up to the base here of this approach. More spring flowers. This is getting more of the feel of an alpine region as we head upward. And continuing up this very nice little trail. Okay, we're going to make this a two-part adventure. We've got you up along this ridge that you see below. That you continue down the ridge and you'll hit Macks Canyon Road, where we departed the road and headed up the ridge. It's an extension of Macks Canyon Road after it becomes blocked off. And a pretty nice trail has enabled us to do Class 2 up to this point. And you can see it becomes a little bit Class 3 up ahead, but definitely doable. Of course, there are a few spots that have drop-offs, loose rock above the drop-off, but it doesn't look too horrible. So, yeah, we are within 500 feet of the southeastern summit of Macks Peak. And then just looking around, there you can see straight ahead the summit of Mummy Mountain, and then to the left is Mummy's Head. Incredibly beautiful day. And there you see Angel Peak and even a view of the Las Vegas Valley below us. And one of the reasons I'm going to make this a two-part adventure is that my distance endurance has not yet worked up to what this is going to require, which is I've already been probably, this will be a 14-mile round trip, which is further than I've been since my surgeries in the winter, just a few months ago, actually. And also the altitude is, right now I'm about 2,500 feet above the highest altitude I've been at this time of year. I mean, in this season, for about a year. And in addition, it is pretty hot today. Down in the Las Vegas Valley below, right now it's approaching 110 degrees. It is probably above 80 degrees where we are right now. I may finish this trip in the fall on a cooler day when it's, instead of 110 degrees down in the Las Vegas Valley, maybe I start out when it's 90 degrees high for Las Vegas Valley, which would make it a lot cooler at this point. But yeah, it looks very doable, but the reason I live to climb another day, always, and for the past 30 years or so, is that I split my adventures, my first exploration, into multiple adventures, and just get to a certain point, get familiar with how to get up to this point, and then next time I return, I'll get here sooner. I know I need to leave earlier so that it's not so late in the day and hot. And yeah, it's going to be 90 degrees by the time I get back down to Lee Canyon Road. So anyway, taking all those considerations, this is a good turnaround point for this first experience of Macks Peak. But I'm really pleased with the idea that, yes, there is a Class 3 ascent. Right up, there's that band of trees that we saw from a distance. And wow, this looks very, very doable. So, and just 500 feet elevation gain to go to get to the southeast summit. So for today, down we go, and we return another day to complete the Macks Peak summit. And by the way, on the way back, I'm going to see if I can streamline a return approach that will, maybe it's down that ridge. You see where it comes to a point, and I came from the other side, the right side of that ridge, and then took the ridge over to this point. But I'm noticing that it descends down that way, which could actually be a better, I see Macks Canyon Road below. It could be an even more direct approach to Macks Canyon Road, which would mean a little less mileage and a little more energy by the time I reach this point. So yeah, let's streamline the return to Macks Canyon Road today and get a really good route. And then we'll return to this point by that more direct route and take the remainder, the class 3 section of the climb. How beautiful it is up there. Okay, onward. Okay, heading back. When we get to the high point, this high point ahead on the ridge, straight ahead, where we were before, we could either head down a little bit, angle to the right, which is the way we came up, or we can angle down to the left. I'm going to angle down to the left on the way back here, see if I can find a more direct route to that upper group camp on Macks Canyon Road. Okay, here we go. We'll take a look at things from the high point on the ridge up ahead. By the way, for a little more perspective, here we are in relation to Macks Peak. So, once again, looking down to the high point on the ridge up ahead. Okay, we're at the high point on that ridge, and I'm looking around for a trail that would head down in this direction and angle toward the canyon. And just not sure I see anything jumping out at me right now. I'll explore a little more up here, and then we can always retrace our way back down the way that we came up originally. But I know we want to get down into Macks Canyon, down in that area. And for perspective, there's Macks Peak. There's the true summit. And this is the southeastern summit. And we're at the base of this on a final approach. And then I believe we're looking at the sisters over here. And then over to Charleston Peak, Lee Peak, far side of Macks Canyon, and in the background, Mummy Mountain, Angel Peak, and then down toward the Las Vegas Valley, and actually, there's Gas Peak. Yeah, this ridge continues down fairly gradually. It looks as if there's a gully down there that would actually lead back to the Macks Canyon Group Camp and the Macks Canyon Road. So yeah, I'm going to continue on this. It looks like it's connected more or less. Hopefully we won't find out the less part. And looking around just to see where we are as we're descending here. There's the northern portion of Macks Peak. 95 corridor. Sheep Range, Gas Peak, Angel Peak, Mummy's Head, and looking down to the bottom there. If we can make the bottom by this route, the bottom of the canyon, then we're back on Macks Canyon Road. So let's just see what happens heading down this ridge. I'm not seeing any, or at least much evidence of anyone having taken this, so could be a more direct route. It could lead to a dead end, then I've got to retrace my way all the way back up this ridge, which will be not too fun. But hey, let's head down and see where we end up. Okay, here we are now on what's kind of an avalanche slope slide trail. Yeah, I could head over in that direction and then head down, but it looks pretty rocky down there. I'm gonna keep to this little avalanche slope slide trail and just slide my way back down to Macks Canyon Road. Okay, here we go. Okay, this little ridge is turning pretty evil on me. Yeah, it looks like it may go down to Macks Canyon Road, down at the bottom there. On the other hand, it may have a drop off, but right here, definitely we're on a slide trail on an avalanche slope. So let's continue on down and just see, maybe we'll hit a gully that will take us all the way down to Macks Canyon Road, or we'll hit a dead end drop off and have to come all the way back up this avalanche slope. That would be no fun. Okay, here we go. Okay, continuing down. Good sign is there's a gully wash that we're going parallel to, which means that hopefully the water has carved out a nice smooth channel all the way back down to Macks Canyon. Hopefully we don't hit like a 20-foot dry waterfall right near the bottom, which would be really fun. But yeah, looking around, here's what we've come down. Definitely a classic Spring Mountains avalanche slope. So let's continue on down, see where this leads. Hopefully to Macks Canyon Road. Okay, now I'm in a little gully, and the going is fairly good, although it looks like it gets steeper up ahead. So we'll see if it turns evil on me or if it continues in this very nice descent down to Macks Canyon. Okay, making like I'm water flowing downhill, and we know those hills in the distance are on the far side of Macks Canyon. And if this nice little gully will just take me down into Macks Canyon and Macks Canyon Road, then we've got it made. If on the other hand there is a barrier between us and Macks Canyon, oh wow, that's a long way up to retrace my steps. Yeah, if I had to, I could, but yeah, that's adding a couple more hours on a hot day. And it is heating up a little bit. But it's still, there's a nice breeze, and it's not too horrible. 109 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley. Continuing to descend this gully. A little weaving around brush, but the gully continues down in a gradual fashion. And unless there is a drop-off at the bottom, which it could be a big problem. Unless there's a drop-off at the bottom, this should lead down to Macks Canyon Road. At least it's going in the right direction. Let's just hope that this nice little gully holds out. And a 360 degree. By the way, those hills beyond the trees are on the other side of Macks Canyon Road. And yeah, this is where I am, wherever that is. And trusting that this gully is going to take me where I want to be. Little rocky area up ahead. Hopefully that's not a cliff drop-off. A sign of people having passed this way before, which means they came up from below, which means that, well, at least points to the possibility that there is no cliff drop-off ahead between where I am at this point and Macks Canyon Road. So still, we're heading down in a gradual way. So let's continue on down. There we have it. Vehicles below, which mean that this is an area right below us where vehicles can travel, which is probably the upper group campground, the upper Macks Canyon group campground. So very, very good. And I guess this would be a route. I'll make a note of where this starts, but wow. Yeah, you ascend a gully for a long ways and then you hit an avalanche slope. I would almost prefer the way that I came originally when I came up, headed up to Macks Peak. So this is definitely a more direct route from the campground, but I gotta say, that avalanche slope up ahead above me that we just descended is quite the monster. On the other hand, the route that I took up that ridge on the way is a bit more gradual. It has a steep portion at the beginning, but then it's fairly gradual and there's a faint trail. So take your pick your poison. There are numerous ways to get to Macks Peak. Okay, back on Macks Canyon Road, and we're at the group campground. Not sure if this is the lower or the upper group campground. We'll find out. But just to give you an idea, there is, if you're heading up Macks Canyon Road and you're in the group campground, there is actually a gully at this point. What would be a good landmark? See those rocks, that rock face straight up there. That might be a good landmark right beyond the rock face, and where the road actually has a turnaround, splits. That's where you head straight up that gully and then hit the avalanche slope. And yes, it is a monster, but it actually is a more direct route. I like the other route though that we took on the way because it's a little more gradual, and I could have run it on the way back where there's no running this avalanche slope. So anyway, yeah, take your pick. Multiple ways to get up to Macks Peak. Okay, we'll see the sign. It's either going to say upper group campground or lower group campground. Let's find out. Okay, so your choices of routes to Macks Peak. You're on Macks Canyon Road. You see this rock formation and you look up in this direction and you see Macks Peak. And you could actually head up a gully, then a monster avalanche slope, then angle your way over once you hit a ridge to the base of that of Macks Peak there. Or you could continue up Macks Canyon Road through the group campground. Still not sure whether this is upper or lower, but we'll check that out when we get to the sign. And the road hits a barrier. There's a barrier of boulders that says that's it for vehicle traffic. And you continue about a half mile and then head up a ridge to your right, large ridge, which is the way that I originally ascended up to Macks Peak. Either way, you end up, your goal is that lower left edge. And from there you hit the trail. You're on the trail by then, and you just wind around a little below the base to your right, and then head up the Class 3 section. Okay, so there's the routes to Macks Peak. The great thing about this is that if you get lost, just follow the ridges or the gullies and you'll end back down on Macks Canyon Road. Be sure to watch for the just the landmarks on either side of Macks Canyon Road, so you know where Macks Canyon is, and you just head downhill to Macks Canyon, and then you hit this road, and then it's a pretty straight 4-mile shot to Lee Canyon Road. Okay, yes, it was the upper group camp. So that's where I emerged up ahead, just about, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile. And then I took a right, you'd take a right and head up the canyon wash and then hit the super avalanche slope. So there you have it. 2 ways to get to the summit of Macks Peak. Now, let the races begin. My goal is to keep from overheating. It is getting a little warm now. But get back down to Lee Canyon Road. And there is quite a dramatic uphill between where we are right now and Lee Canyon Road. So that should be a delightful thing to experience at the end of this adventure. But here we go. Okay, here we are back at Lee Canyon Road. It's about a 14-mile round trip, 14 and a half. And here we are back at the beast. And we made it on foot from this point to the final approach to Macks Peak. And next time we do this, we will make it to the summit. But from this video that I've created of this adventure, you can see how to get to the final approach of Macks Peak. And you're just 500 feet below the summit, at least the southeastern summit. So, yeah, you have what you need actually to get to the summit based on this adventure video. Good luck. And by the way, the round trip on foot was about 7.5 hours.